home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.
Hello everybody, welcome back. And as you can probably see, I am in my new workshop, which is the basement of our little house on the hill. We got electric run up here. It's very exciting for me. And I just want to get started on this segment of this 127. I've had a lot of problems as a stripper. And let me tell you my stripper problems. If you've watched, you've seen, sorry, I have a cat rubbing on my tripod. You've seen that I've been using this stripper to strip down the paint on my machines. And all I have is this little bit left, and so I was thinking, oh no, I need to go buy more stripper. So I just did a quick little search online, you know, nothing in depth, and it seemed like people were suggesting aircraft paint remover. So I just got the, rattle can type of stripper, and I said, well, I'll just give that a shot from the beginning. So I sprayed it on, and it did not do very much. And at first, I was filming all of this and trying to document it, but it turned, as I progressed, you'll see it turned kind of like into a dumb ways to die kind of video. So I decided I'm not going to show you guys that because I didn't want to be, liable for someone trying to follow the folly of my ways. So let me tell you what the problem is. This is an old can of stripper. And there is an ingredient in the cans from before, I think 2019, that makes them work extremely well. That was banned in the US from that point on. So if you look, I don't have my glasses on, I think it's methylene chloride. A lot of the cans and the bottles will say methylene chloride free. Unfortunately, it is that ingredient that made them work so well. So I decided that, well, I need to try a new way because, if it is terribly banned and, for the sake of my health and the environment and everything, it would be good for me to find an option. And since the newer strippers didn't work nearly as well as my faithful old can here, I decided I was going to try an electrolysis tank. And right now, down on my porch, I'm on like the 5th version of that, because if you look at 10 different videos on setting up an electrolysis tank, you get 10 different methods and 10 different concepts. And it seems like most of them are set up for rust removal and not paint removal. Plus, paint on old machines is different from paint on tools and things like that. So at this point, I'm going to wait and show you that setup when I know that I have it, in the method that, this is the problem here, in the method that is actually going to work, okay? And so basically an electrolysis tank is you have a big poly tub of some kind that's, non-conductive, and you set up an anode, a cathode, one to absorb all the gunk, one to push out all the gunk. You put the negative on your thing you're trying to strip, you put your positive on the thing you're trying to absorb too, and flick on the charger and see how it goes. And like I said, I've gone through two different chargers. I've got a 4-wheeler battery hooked up to it now. I've learned what works and what doesn't, kind of. And so next time, next stripping video, hopefully I'll have more detail on that. I didn't want to show what didn't work, you know, because that could get really confusing. So anyway, in my tanks that were not the best, I got between 2 coats of this in a poly bag to try to keep it, you know, the gases contained and everything, and 2 days in a tank. It's mostly clean, but there's still parts that are not, especially, and if you can see, sorry, and get this cat out of here. She keeps knocking my tripod. But especially right here, that part was not wanting to come out, but it did clean up pretty well underneath and everything. So what I'm going to be doing is using some of my last remaining, you know, toxic stripper and just put it on these little parts that did not want to come off and get those taken off by my chemical stripper. I am hoping that when I get my new version of my tank, it'll work a lot better and I won't have to do this, but you know, since I have enough to deal with these little parts, that's what I'm going to do. So now you know all of my stripping issues, and let me go ahead, get this done. Next time you see it, hopefully there will be absolutely no paint left on it, and I'll be able to get started painting it. Okay, so this is my brand new table cam angle. I'm very excited about that. I'm up against a window and there's things, so that's what these shadow lines are. So I think that the machine is pretty much stripped to the point that I'm happy with it. So I am just going to put some mineral spirits onto a paper towel and give it a quick wipe down to stop any residual action by any residual amount of paint stripper that might be on here. And I have not touched the wheel or the, I can't remember the name, the belt guard piece yet. I do need to strip those separately, so I will be getting to that later. I just wanted to get this part started here. Once I get this wiped down, I'm going to paint it with a primer, a filler primer. Let me go get the can and show you. Okay, this is the primer I'm going to be using. I'm hopeful that it's going to fill in all the little nooks and crannies, but before I get to that point, I'm going to need to mask off areas that I don't want paint to go. So I'm going to be filling in these little holes here, and this area, all of that, and get that all masked off. So let me do that, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's all done. Woo! Sorry about that. Table cam gets a little wobbly when I get too vigorous here. Okay, so I pretty much have it masked off. I still need to cover up this little number right here, so I don't want to paint that, but you can see I'm leaving this open. Got this masked off. I've got paper towels shoved inside here and masked off the bottom of that shaft that I don't want painted. Over here. Up here, where there are little oil holes that if I sprayed it, it would spray right down onto the main shaft, which I did not remove. I got those blocked off. And up in the front, a lot of times I'll just mask off the entire area. I did not do that because when I put it into the electrolysis tank, it actually stripped out a lot of the paint inside here. And if I don't paint it, it's going to rust. So I've just masked off this cog, whatever it is called up here. I do need to learn the right terminology someday. And this little Y piece that I did not remove because I am too chicken to punch out this pin. At some point, I do need to overcome that issue. So I've got those masked off because I don't want them painted, but the rest of it, it's going to get a coating of paint. I might just leave it primed. I'm chipping off a little remnant of paint that did not come off here. I might just leave it primed and not put the final coat on it. I haven't figured that out yet. But I think it's about ready. to get hit with the primer. I did leave this unmasked. This is where the little tension mechanism sets in there. And I think that the whole little tension deal will fit just fine if it is painted. So I'm not too worried about that. I just want to make sure I have it all cleaned out so I'm not painting on top of gunk. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a good coat of my primer and let that be drying. And then while that is being worked on, I'm going to come back and try to strip this part and the inner part of the wheel right here. Hello and welcome back out here. So it's the next day and my primer is dry. So got a very fine grit sandpaper and I am just lightly sanding her and all of her parts off because today is the day I'm going to paint her. Now, I think the last time that I filmed me painting was back when I was doing Rose, and it turned out good, you know, there's no problems, and I've done a few since then, but I wanted to mention that I've done more research, and we learn as we do, it's part of life, and what I have learned is that I was probably waiting too long in between coats according to what manufacturers and experts say. So my process is going to be, I'm going to give it a fairly light coat, wait 15 minutes. Give it a heavier coat, wait another 15 minutes, and then top it off 15 minutes later. So I'm basically going to be doing 3 coats in 1 hour. So let me show you the paint that I'm going to be using. This girl's going to be pink, and this does say satin, but I will be using my really, really strong clear coat when everything is said and done, so it doesn't really matter to me that this isn't a gloss, okay? It was hard to find this color in anything. I guess it's a popular color, and it was sold out. So this is what I'm going to be using. I want to make sure that my can is fairly warm when I get started, and I'm going to try to get everything sanded off and hung up over in my painting area so I can do it all at one time. While I'm waiting for paint to dry, I'm going to go ahead and slightly disassemble this motor that I rebuilt earlier so that I can paint the housing and not worry about anything going in here. I'm just going to try to separate it, protect, probably put a sandwich bag and tape over the motor part itself, take the little pulley off so I can, and I'll take the plate off too, so I can paint the housing to match because that's kind of ugly right now. So I'm going to work on that. I have 2 coats on my miscellaneous parts and machine, and it's kind of doing the same thing that my Sea Mist Green 15 did, where it gets a texture. Now, what I'm planning on doing is waiting 1 day and then sanding this down, just color coat down, and if at that point I need to go ahead and paint it again, I can. Just give it a couple more coats of the same color. But I just want to let you know, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with the primer that I'm using, because I've never had, and I've used this paint before several times, but it's only done it these last 2 times when I use that specific filler primer. So I'm wondering if it's a reaction that way. I don't know. It's all kind of a guess right now for me. But that's my plan, is I have 1 more coat I need to do on here, and then go ahead and sand it down tomorrow with a light sandpaper just to even everything out, smooth everything out. And then if need be, I can paint it some more. So here's all my little bits that are painted up, and what I have done is I lightly sanded this machine down, actually with a 320 grit sandpaper, because there was quite a bit I wanted to take off. So I sanded her down, wiped her down, got her nice and clean, and then I just put a final top coat of the color paint on her, and I'm just going to let that sit overnight, let it dry really hard, And while she is drying, I am going to come back over here and get my motor reassembled and maybe get started to get organized on her whole put back togetherness. But I wanted to show you a quick view of the update of our workshop here. That's going to be my little work area over there by the window, and then we have that tank down there. This is my paint removal electrolysis tank, which I will show probably in the next project video. And then over here is more of the woodworking-ishness and other things and more supplies. So as you can see, my husband worked really hard getting all the big pieces up here today, and so hopefully we'll have a fully functioning workshop very soon. Just polished up the little bolts for my motor, and look how pretty they turned out. They're little brass bolts. I think those are gorgeous. So yeah, I'm gonna get all of this put back together. I did get some pink paint on my cord here. I might just see what I can do to get that cleaned off. And the grommet that's gonna go here, it was pretty rotten. So I have a new one, but because I have the cord on, what I've done is just cut it so I can kind of wrap it around, pop it back into the hole, and I think that that's going to be fine because it's going to be in there really, really snug. Okay, so here's my pink pretty motor, and I did plug it in and test it. Everything works fine. My new grommet that's on there, there's the little slit that I cut, but like I said, it's in there really tight, and where that paint got on, it was just on some of the shrink tubing covering. So I just clipped that off, and since I was shortening the wire anyway, I just slid a whole new piece over it, and looks much better. So I'm just going to keep this wrapped up so it doesn't get scratched, put it over with all of the other parts, and hopefully tomorrow I can get started doing some of the detail work on the paint on this machine. Just took a little bit of time and polished up the edge of this wheel, and it did clean up really well, so I'm really pleased with that because it looks a lot better than it used to. Looks like I got a little bit dirty here. I need to wipe that off, but I'm gonna work on putting my bobbin winder back together too, trying to get all of these little loose odds and ends done while I'm waiting for the main machine to finish drying and setting up. Okay, so I've got my little parts here. I've already done the preliminary cleaning on all of my sorted pieces. And this little wheel here has a little bit of pitting on it. You know, you can't clean pitting, it's just eaten away from the metal there. But that shouldn't impact how this thing works. It turns freely, so I'm not going to really worry about it, but yeah, that just is what it is. So let me go ahead and start getting all of my little pieces here to their final polish and reassembly. And I want to point out on these, there's a tiny little hole right here, and you need to make sure you put a tiny little drop of oil in there. And spin this around just to get that shaft in there coated well, because that's going to get a lot of spinning, and a lot of times these parts are locked up and froze up with rust and things. So make sure if you have one of these and you want to keep up with it, that you're using an oil bottle with just a needle nose, so you can get just a tiny drop out at a time. They are fabulous, and you can just keep refilling it, because the bigger spouts, they're just too much. They're just too much, and especially at the top of the machine, putting into all the little bitty tiny holes, you really need something really precise. If I have a whole bunch of them, I'll probably add them to my website in case you can't find them and you want one of mine. I can sell them, they're reasonable. But yeah, you need a tiny needle-nosed oil bottle. And here at my table, let's see if I can turn it, I have my polisher right here. It has the polishing wheel on this side. This is the abrasive wheel. Right now, what I'm doing is just as I'm pulling a piece out, and I've cleaned it already, I'm just giving it a final polish before I reassemble. You know, just to get the shine on it before I actually put the screws on and get it all screwed in, because once I do that, it probably won't come apart for another 100 years, or at least that's the hope. Got a brand new tire put on, and it fits well, so that is nice. Okay, so I think it's all back together. Got the spring, which is gonna hold this arm on really well. So basically this is a friction wheel that's going to go up against the one that I just polished and showed you. This, even though it's from 1927, it doesn't have a big open worked wheel. It has a more modern closed wheel that's not a lot of spokes and everything on it. So as this turns, it's going to rotate this piece, and as this little heart-shaped piece rotates, this spring follows this, which is going to make this little arm go back and forth, which is going to load the bobbin that sits in here. So that's this little mechanism. It's got a little bolt back here that is going to attach it to the machine. So I think that is ready to go. I'm going to try to hand paint this machine with some line art, scrolly heart needle kind of line art. So I have some black satin Rust-Oleum over here. I'm going to add a little bit of paint thinner to it just to thin it out a bit. Okay, so I started out on the back of the machine. This is a very, very sunny spot here. So I could get some practice in before I got to the front. And I've tried a little more thinner, a little less thinner, a couple different brushes, and I think, see if I can do this without getting wet, this longer brush, even though it's a little bit thicker than the one I started with, it holds more paint, and I think that that's giving me a better result. So I'm just going to keep on scrolling and hearting around on here, and then I'm going to do something special on the middle and up here on the very front panel. With this gold paint, it's got gold flecks in it. Really kind of fun. Oh, there goes that paint. And I am just filling in the hearts because you know what is an old sewing machine without a little bit of glitter? So I love how the light catches it. Okay, so now to work on this part here, the exposed part, and yes, I'm going to put my medallion back on somehow. Haven't quite figured out how. I'm not too sure. I'll deal with that in a little while, but I have created some decals, and I'm going to be putting this singer one here and on the back in the same place, and I also made a little biography one of her model number, and I think it's kind of fun that she is a 127, born on 127, you know, kind of cool. But this is going to go down here below where the medallion goes. So let me go ahead and get these put on, and looks like I have a little bit of gold on there. I must have smeared some on, but that's okay. A little gold is fine. I might even add some more. And again, these are water slide decals, and basically for me, if they're going to be just black and white, I print them at home on my laser printer, so you get special water slide decal paper, and this one is clear. They have it with clear backing or a white backing. So if I'm putting it on a light colored machine, I can use clear. If I am using it on a dark colored machine, I need to do something with a white background or else it just won't show up. So once I get it wet, I kind of place it where I want it to go, let it sit here for just a little bit. It doesn't take that long for everything to soak through, and that loosens up the glue to the paper. And then I can just start to slide the paper off from the back. And there we go. Let me get a better look here to make sure that I have it straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the other one up on top. And to create the design for these, I like to use, it's a free online program called Canva, C-A-N-V-A, canva.com. And, you know, there's always a pro version that you can pay money for, but usually everything I need is on the free version. And so that's how I created this little singer logo here. It had the word love in the middle, so I just cropped the word love out, wrote the word singer in a font that kind of goes with my design here, and placed that in there. So that's how I did that. Now this is really long, and so it might get a little bit wrinkly, but if I keep everything nice and wet, I can straighten it out after I pull my backing paper off. See how it just wants to kind of buckle there? So let me get this off, and then while everything is very, very wet, I'm going to go ahead and smooth it all out. Yeah. And try to make it somewhat level, like that. So let me see if I can move this camera down a little bit. There you go. Maybe you can see that better. Okay, so I was debating on putting another heart up here. I think I'm not going to right now. I think I kind of like it looking a little bit plainer up there on top. I wanted to show you, this is the medallion, and it's going to go back right here, and I polished it up. And the reason I took it off this time is, I haven't done this before, but when I was doing my machine just before this, the old 15, I didn't realize that when I was, you know, stripping and cleaning and all of that kind of stuff, there was a whole bunch of yuck that was building up behind the medallion. And I painted it and everything, but when I was putting on my decals and just, you know, doing detail work around it, I went to clean it, and all of this yuck came out from behind it. And I think it was like a buildup of stripper and degreaser and all kinds of stuff that hadn't been cleaned off. So I had, off camera, of course, time trying to get it all cleaned off, and then I was able to fix it. I was able to put a decal over any spot that, you know, didn't look perfect. Thankfully, it was very busy with decals, and the decals covered it. But I has decided that I didn't want to have to deal with that on this one. So that's why I took it off. And I've seen videos of other people, and what they were able to do is just get like little nippers or special pliers and pop these nails off. Well, I tried that and I could not do it. They're very soft. It's like a flower head type of a nail that's on here, and it's a softer brass. And so every time I tried to do that, they just disformed. So I ended up filing them down a little bit. But I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to reattach this, but I will be reattaching it and figuring out what to do. And I have a little cat here, this little cat, say hello, who just wants to be in the process so much. And when I was doing my detail painting, she kept jumping on the chair right behind me, and I'd go like that, and drove me nuts, but I think that I'm good now. So I really like the way it's turning out. I'm gonna let all of this dry and then probably come back this afternoon when it's dry and do my clear coat. I'm not going to put this back on until after I have my clear coat on and it has 100% cured and hardened up. So that is the plan right now. So right now this is what she looks like from the front. And she has her little base with all kinds of little line art golden hearts just for fun. Oops. And then on the back she also has the little singer logo. Oops, I need to fix this one. I'm glad I looked right now. I did not press it down enough. Down, cat. So when I come back, hopefully all of this will be dried and cured, and I will be using my very heavy-duty diamond strength clear coat. And I might even put 2 coats on here. I haven't decided. The last time I only put 1 coat, but I'm thinking 2 coats might work better. Okay, so several hours have passed, and I think I'm ready to go ahead and give it its clear coat. So this is what I'm using. This will be the second machine I've done it on. The first machine was my Singer 1511, and I put a single coat on. I might put 2 coats, I'm not sure yet. But you have to make sure your machine is completely oil-free and no dust, no nothing. So I've been wiping it down with my little microfiber cloth here. And she's still very clean from when I painted her, so she should be good. And you don't paint out of the can, you pour some in a separate jar and paint out of the jar. So that's what I'm going to do. Let me go ahead and get a brush so I can brush this on. Now this is pretty heavy duty stuff. It is made for automotive use, but it makes an amazing non-yellowing clear finish that is, once it's cured, and I can tell you it takes about a week for it to 100% cure. It is rock hard, so I like that a lot. So I'm going to go ahead, open up my little jar here, hopefully. There you go. And I'm just using a new clean brush, and I'm just going to get started painting it on. I'm going to try not to get a lot of it into my little oil holes, but I want to be able to get it coated nicely. So just give me a minute. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down. Okay, so I've got all my little pieces clear coated, and the last thing I'm going to do is back on this light fixture that is now like this really pretty coppery kind of color, and I want to retain that color, so I am just putting a clear coat over it so that hopefully it won't oxidize and it can keep that copper-ishness going, because I think that that kind of goes really well with the pink. So I'm going to pull this light bulb out and paint the inside of that little shroud also, and let this dry, and then that is going to be it. I am going to walk away and not touch this again, probably for a couple days, just because I want it to get a really good chance to harden up without the risk of any fingerprints on it. So Hang on, I'm still unscrewing that little light bulb so I can paint the inside here. And I love that I was able to salvage the old light. Sometimes I can't, but this time I could, so loving that. I think it's really pretty. So anyhow, that is it. And that honestly is it for this whole painting episode. So let me take the camera down and show you another close-up. And next time we will be putting her back together.
I found an antique sewing machine, forgotten and alone. I touched her rusty wheels and knew I'd take her home. I brought her to my farm in an Amish neighborhood where simple living's valued. She'd be loved and understood. I put her on a treadle stand and coaxed her wheel to turn. I felt her joy and easing with my study and concern. I cleaned her and I oiled her, showed her off to all my friends, repaired the hurts of years, and let her sew again.